Happy Valentine's Day. This week we talk about how to create a relationship in the new era.
And we'll talk about one common topic. What happens if one spiritual partner has a spiritual awakening and the other doesn't? For this and more, stay tuned.
I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
And you can thank me for covering your astro. Hello and welcome to Leading Out Loud, the spiritual shift show that includes a psychic and an astrologer. Of course, will lead you in the right direction. This week we're talking about relationships. Love, it has been said, and I quote, "Love is the bridge between you and everything." Clearly, our resident Step 29 Libra wasn't trying to get in the show with that one, but this week we're going to talk about the new era of love and where things are going. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, things are going. So, I mean, what are we talking about?
Exactly. See, this is why our relationship doesn't work. We'll talk about that as well this week. No, but first, before we talk about relationships, it's Valentine's Day. We have to talk about the weather and the psychic surf report.
Yes.
Yeah, and go there first. So we're being corny. We've had a good pre-show here, and we're all out of jokes. We're just to let you know.
We're out of jokes. We're done. Stick a fork in us. Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Do you want to talk about the climate? Yeah, because the climate has been, I would say the climate's been kind of sleepy. And I mean, it's raining by us, but I think it's been kind of sleepy. A lot of people have been, I feel, I don't want to say the lazy word, but kind of lazy sleeping on things. But I don't think that's a bad thing, especially with Valentine's Day coming up. I think it's good to enjoy this kind of lazy energy, the energy of not trying to push so much, right? Not trying to do too much. I think even as we kind of, slide into Valentine's Day, allowing ourselves to take a step back and to enjoy, just doing nothing. Maybe, don't put too much emphasis and create so much projects just because it's Valentine's Day. Maybe let the love shine for itself. So I think to me, the laziness is more so letting the love do the talking, not so much, all your physical actions, what you think you need to do to appease people, That's kind of the climate, I feel.
Well, I definitely agree with the laziness, especially from you, buddy. But no, at this time of year, it's like,
please.
But here's what's interesting. I mean, this is the same time as like the end of August, as far as it's opposite, like the beginning of August, which is usually we have vacations. So right in that first part of August, like 8/8, Lionsgate, it's real like lazy summer, lazy river. I don't feel like doing anything, kind of energy.
Right.
It's interesting because it's the same spectrum, it's just one side or the other. The irony is we're talking about love in Aquarius when in fact it's a Leo topic, right?
Right.
So that's interesting. And actually, I don't think Aqua has very much to do with love. Aqua is friendship. Leo is love. So it's a spectrum of friendship to love. Not that Aquas don't love, but then they say, and your money's on the dresser, get the hell out. That's the Aqua energy to love. Kick it out. But astrologically, what's happening is we are slowing down, first of all. Ironically, we're speeding up. So the Earth is going faster right now. And that means that we get to more than one step a day. So this is an issue for us at Serious Joy. It bit me in the astro because literally I have to do my work earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier as we start speeding up. And this is the Earth speeding up around the sun when the Earth is fixing to like whip around the side of the sun. And so we end up moving faster in time. The irony is things seem to be moving slower.
Right.
Paradoxical. That's really odd. But astrologically, what we're doing is we're fine-tuning our frequency. And that's what we meant. We're fine-tuning our frequency. And right now, the fine-tuning kind of came to a head literally last night or yesterday.
That's right.
We had a full moon ultimately in Leo. And this is the most... I'm not kidding. This Leo full moon was so sensitive, I fell asleep talking about it with Robbie on the actual recording. I sort of fell asleep. It's such a quiet, subtle full moon at 24 degrees Leo. And 24 is the grandmaster relationship moon, or 24 is the master relationship. It's the number of Libra. It's the highest Libra you can get. So the 24th degree is the policy for relationships altogether.
Right.
So what this full moon was is basically perfect for a lead into the show, because this full moon was saying we're going to withdraw very gently from this policy we have been in about our relationships, and in particular our relationships to frequency, like what frequency will I frequent, and our relationships to people, the full moon in Leo, what relationship will I love? And it was a subtle withdrawal. is what happened.
Yeah, but I also think it's a lot of people are being forced to like understand how they're going to respond to circumstance,
Hmm.
especially because like how the world is very chaotic right now, like not a surprise to me,
Is it?
but but right, no, it's completely peaceful, but I think that people have been more emotional, but I have found people also taking a step back, do the slowness in a sense, saying,
Mm.
should I respond that way, or what are they really thinking? I found more people are being more introspective that way and more objective, and I think that and there's a lot of people that are not, of course, are being impulsive, but I think during the slow period is kind of like moving through a swamp energy, this density to me feels good because I'm able to like really hear my thoughts. I'm really able to like catch myself if I'm like going to be reactive if someone cut me off on the street, which
Mhm.
happened yesterday. Someone's beeping
Mm.
at me, and I'm like, and I just said to myself, am I going to get mad because that usually is me, that's doing the beeping. So I'm like, touche, and I said I'm going to change and work on not being that way, and understand a lot of times we get mad or upset at things that we end up doing ourselves. So I definitely take this time of this slow period to reflect in that way and to not react, not to be impulsive. And I think with our relationships too, we can find great understanding when we take that time of slowing down. And so I think this is a wonderful time for that. And I feel like the new moon yesterday too. Like, I saw a friend I hadn't seen in a while. And we were just strolling downtown, just enjoying, the pace of not having to like do anything, and enjoying the pace of not having to like, just being present in a sense. And I think people misunderstand what being present means. I'm saying stop focusing on the past, stop focusing on the future so much, but understanding how you're feeling right now, and that can guide you to the future. So I didn't mean to be long-winded about that, but
No, that's good. That's good. We didn't
I
punch
took
in
my
at the
time.
end of it. Yeah. Well, I agree. Well, first of all, it's unusually so because of Mars retrograde. So what you were just talking about, how you had to slow down and realize that you're very New Yorker, like I'm walking here. Like it was, you were able to see that scene slower and realize that maybe it wasn't the best scene to do. I think that's part of it. Mars retrograde is saying, hey, a lot of times we are vomiting our anger on other people because
Right.
we're angry, because we're
Hmm.
angry and we're projecting on others. And Mars, is slowing down now. It's at its stationary degree, I think, in the next day or so, which is 17, which is a new emotional commitment that you're going to have with how your ego deals with feelings and others. So
Right.
that's like one aspect of it. How does my ego deal with feelings and others?
Right.
And some people are learning that if you're mad at someone, you blame yourself a week ago or a day ago
Right.
because you attracted that situation into your life in that moment. The power is not, so much in the now, which now is the present. The present is the pre-sent, what you
Hmm.
sent previously. That's what it is. So ultimately, this is what you pre-sent. Our power was actually a minute ago when we responded to ourselves in a certain way.
Right.
Pluto at 2 degrees Aquarius is at the same time doing psychic surgery on us, saying, "Hey, you're like, Scott, your bomb going to go off anyways."
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
to begin with, because you're upset at home, you're not happy with what was happening inside of you, or you're not feeling good about this, or you're not feeling good about that. And so by the
Right.
time someone crosses you off, or cuts in front of you in traffic, you're already brewing bomb anyways, and that itself drew in the person who cut you off in traffic.
True, but not only that, like I also realized because how I reacted to that, like I actually am allowing myself to take a step back and like tweak the things. I feel like sometimes we just end up agitating ourselves for no friggin' reason. And that's been one of my struggles, I think, for a long time. I get agitated by the stupidest stuff for no reason sometimes. And,
Mhm.
and so, and so this time has allowed me to work on that better. And like, almost like, I remember when I got into a car accident, Christopher, I don't know if you experienced like a really major accident or something that was like close to death energy, everything like slows down.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
when I got hit by a car and my car's flipping, it was like so slow motion. You're able to like kind of think and process in that, that slowness of time. I've been feeling that lately with time when things like that happen to me. I like take a step back. I'm able to process it in that slow motion time and say, I'm like, nope, that's me. That's the old version of me. So I'm not getting mad. I'm not going to be that way anymore. So I think if we can find this to be very helpful right now. If we just like allow ourselves to take that step back and look at what's happening.
Oh, this is us pulling out of basically our old relationship pattern, period.
Right.
Because in the big arc of things, we're about to go into Pisces. And when we go into Pisces, we are shifting gears. We're actually shifting gears already, is what's happening. We've already said, I'm done with the karma of me being an asshole or this or that, or I'm done with being in this kind of relationship. We've all said, I'm done. That happened already last year. Last year was a whole year of I'm done. Now that we've come into this year, it's been Capricorn, I'm done, therefore I quit. And then Aquarius, I'm done, therefore I don't belong here, I belong there, right? And
Right.
we're now in the I belong there part. In fact, the full moon on Tuesday was I don't belong here. And now for the rest of Aquarius, it's I belong there.
Here.
We
Right.
point to where we belong, the vibration we belong to. I want to be at that party. I want to be on that parade, And then in Pisces, it's the literal, like you heard, I'm switching in the parade. Like at that point, the universe, the karma starts to switch. And at that point, I think I actually said this full moon that we just had, it was like a silent but deadly because I predict in the next 3 weeks, you're going to see a massive wave of breakups of business partnerships, all sorts of things because people are carrying out now this intention that they want to be on a different timeline. And
Right.
by Aries, it's the birth of the new we go, which is
Yeah.
like, it's time for we to go. Stop by, baby. And we start moving on to that new timeline. So we're literally backing out and pulling into a new timeline.
I agree with that too. And I also feel like in the contrary to, the breakup energy, I feel like those relationships that are meant to be will be too. I think like something will bring them together. So whatever, like a lot of times because our ego, like we pull away from relationships that we're not supposed to be, or just any type of conditional reasoning we pull away. I think those relationships that are meant to be put together will be put together too. So yes, a lot of breakups, a lot of come togethers too of those relationships that need to come together. So,
And there's
so
fated ones. I mean, and that kind of goes as to what we're talking about this
right.
week. Because there are tremendous number of fated relationships coming. I got to tell you, one of the themes I've seen in charts for so long has been like someone like I rarely get people in their 20s, only really incredible people actually. I don't mean to say that you're an idiot if you don't do it, but only the most incredible people get a reading from me in their 20s. I'm not kidding because they're so on top of their shift and
True.
ahead of the game, and they'll be like, "So where's my love of my life?" And I'm like, "It shows you've got 3 marriages. Like, what do I tell her? Like that's always I'm always like, they'll come to me about one, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to only tell you this because you're young and because you're obviously out with it. The next 2 will fail. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and that's because you have this past life stuff you got to wrap up. And the love of your life is going to be later because you've got this wrap up stuff. So I've been saying this for years. And I've been telling also baby boomer women in the next generation down who are like, I've given up on men. I'm done. I don't ever again. I can never do it again. I'm like, never say never because the real one
Right.
is actually in this new era. Like, so we have many of us plan to be with someone else in the new era. Many of
True.
us. I mean, I would say the number is like 70-30 as far as the percentage of people
Mm.
who are sleeping or being with someone else next. And that next
Right.
is this year, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing a huge flock of relationships. It's one of the reasons why Serious Story is going to do a love show here coming up because we think it's going to be all about relationships again. And you haven't seen nothing yet. I think we all
Right.
had these past life relationships that we set up. I personally think for me, I can just speak for myself. I know I was in heaven. I was just like, you know what? Just wait till I get through all my shit. And if I do, yeah, bring him in. Like that's what I think a lot of us decided we want to have that love on the other side of that ugly karma stuff.
Well, and that's because we have to be in tune. We got to be intuitive to like what love is for us. Like even though like I was single for 10 years and like I was trying to date because I felt
too.
like I know I need to date. I was pushing myself to it. I got to date, got to date. And it's like, but I knew intuitively, I said, I'm not going to settle down until I'm 43, and I just knew that. Right. So then I'm like, you think that like that's a long time, but it's like, I look back now being just turned 43 and I'm like, I keep saying like all the time. I'm obviously being like a Valentino here. Like, oh my God, like, oh my God.
Like he
Oh
was
my
so
God.
cute.
Like I'm so in love. Like he's so cute. Um, but I'm 43 now, and I'm like I'm talking. Here I get the like again, and I'm talking to my partner about like moving in together and settling down, marriage, and all that stuff. And so I look back, and I'm like I really do. I did know intuitively that I wasn't supposed to be forcing myself to date. And a lot of times we deprive ourselves of feeling like because we're not dating, there's something wrong, or I'm not in a relationship now because something's wrong. It's like if you're in tune to understanding what the path is, tapping into your intuition, you'll know it's not for the now. And I think a lot of people resist that. A lot of people resist that, but no, I need it now. It's like, well, that's the deprivation we got to be working on,
Well,
So
I need it now was last week's show because I think
if
lust
you
is law of
haven't seen it, guys, go watch the rerun of last week's show. And, if you
It's
haven't
a
seen
good
it.
segue. I mean, and this is where we are. So, to wrap up the psychic surf report, I'm predicting very calm skies now for the next 10, 15 days. Like, it's going to be sort of like slow down to very boring because you have to get to the very little tiniest nuances. What I've learned in the years I've been doing this on camera is the actual change. When you change your life, it's so quiet. You're not ever in a place. It's never when your life is loud. It's never when things are going crazy. The change happens at the tiniest, most subtle moment where you're like, nah. And when you say nah, like just a nah, that was actually the goodbye forever kind of to that timeline or whatever. So we slow down to just ridiculous quiet, slow, because we're going to do psychic surgery and very subtly unplug. And once we go into Pisces, is it unplug from really ultimately, and we'll talk about it next week, where you're not compassionate to yourself.
Right.
So look out for, look for inside of you between now and the next show. Look for inside of you where you're being it's not even too hard on yourself. It's just hard on yourself a little bit where you could be nice, and that alone is what's holding you on. We are at the very, very core, quietly punishing ourselves for something. And so look for that quiet punishment. At the same time, that quiet punishment is also you saying yes to serious joy at seriousjoy.com. No, but really, serious joy is what we use, which I branded. I've decided to take a spectrum of the consciousness, call it mine. So everything from step 20 to step 29 Leo is now ours. We own the copyright to it since the government doesn't believe in astrology. We're like, fine, we own it. But really what it is that it is the part of great, immense joy. So in the end of Aquarius, we actually are looking for immense, roll your eyes in the back of your head. Oh my God, joy. Okay. Serious joy. And then at that point, there's that, well, why don't I have it? And then we go into Pisces. It's like, because you're hard on yourself here, and here.
Right. I'm glad I set you up for that advertisement.
That was brilliant. Thank you. I'll just we can only read the script that way. So yeah. That's right. Last week, I don't know if you all know, but we plan our shows. We actually do. And we do a good job. We plan it 5 minutes before we go on the air. And we're very thorough. We're very thorough. And last week's show was about sex. And we did kind of modern. We did the sex first, and then we talked about relationships. And that's how we're doing it. This week, we're going to talk about relationships. But before we do, I want to address an elephant in the room. Which is something to that effect. After the show, Scott, I went back to my desk where I work hard every day. And apparently one of these viewers, which we love our viewers, wrote a 4-page email to us about how I was putting down the sex industry and putting down the porn industry. Yeah, and putting down sex, and how I was this prejudiced and I was this voice against, making sexual workers. Yeah, totally. I know. That's what I said. There's a sex worker under my desk right now. That is so wrong. But the point is that the point I want to say here is you guys have no idea what I believe. You have to know this is an entertainment show, and we're always going to just be fun, and we're going to explore the topics in different ways. In fact, we can have a contest maybe of what I actually believe. It'll probably shock you, as far as the concept of my truth.
I have to say, besides, besides the stuff you have been through, I just knowing you that you're probably the last person that would judge that. I think, the conversation last week, and, I mentioned that I don't want to say sex worker. I mean, I was a stripper, dancer in my 20s, and I did, fetish shows and all that stuff. And it was my psychology. I put myself, enough to get myself to get jobs as a composer, and it worked. I mean, so, but it was very healing for me. And so I think, sometimes being objective about things, and even though there could be, we have heart and compassion to these things, there's still dangers of the other side of it too that we need to talk about. And so, and I agree. And I think to me, that's where you were coming from last week. I was not offended, being someone who worked in that industry. I do agree. There's certain things to these modalities that could be harmful that we should discuss. Just like sugar can be harmful, just like all these other things. We need to be objective to understand that. So yeah, you'd be the last person to me that would judge anything of that nature,
No, and particularly with porn. I stand behind it. I think if porn wasn't on the internet searchable by a 2-year-old, the world would be a different place right now. And
more
all
regulated.
I felt that we were exposing. I personally feel, now I'm of the crazy opinion that we should shelter children from sex to a certain age. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm seeing what's happened. You see, guys, I get these. I counseled the victims of this shit week after week after week after week after week. This doesn't mean just going off on a high horse, which I love to do. A horse with no name, practically. But I love it.
I just want to step in though. But you and I both victims of
Yes.
that at a child
Yes.
young age. So this is
Totally.
coming from two victims of sexual abuse as a child, as a young age. This is coming from people who have been through that. So I agree, because I think that children should understand the nature of their body and sexuality naturally on their own timing. You know,
Naturally.
right. It shouldn't be suggested like just all four false in your mind. It should be very much, especially when they're vulnerable to understand these things. We don't need entertainment to be a representative of that. So I think it should be regulated for adults. It's great for an adult and those who work in those industries, but we just need to regulate for children. I agree. I'm very sensitive to that. Especially I'm very sensitive to when I see women being degraded and a lot of these things. I have I want to protect women for some reason. I've always been that way because I'm a mama's boy. And so, even though I know some women choose that too, but I just think a regulation for children. I totally agree with that on you. Children should discover organically their body and those
Totally.
around them and with their peers. It shouldn't be, shouldn't be
Shouldn't be that way.
influenced. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I had a sexual predator as a father, and I remember I asked him, Dad, what is the porn? And the next day there was a VHS tape of Deep Throat, the video, the porn on my desk.
Wow.
Like start with Deep Throat, which was not natural. I mean, like, if you see that, film, it's not natural.
He just put that on your. He just like randomly just put that on your desk.
He had
for you
it
to watch?
first of all in his files, like somewhere. I don't know where they
Wow.
were locked up, but that film. I don't know if you've seen that film. It's like, you don't start there. That is the
Right.
that is the point. That is the predator. That's predator energy. It's like, and porn has done that and used that. Of course, I think it's what makes me a great counselor now of sex, is having gone through that kind of influence with my father.
Exactly.
I can talk about it now, whereas before I was so humiliated to talk about it. But the point is like that is what happens. You have, you have men like that who the porn is not enough anymore.
Right.
Something more stimulating, like actual, and so I just feel like we have to be careful with it, in that regard. So I stand behind that to the viewer. Please, people, don't read me 5-page essays, because really what you need is a session, and our staff can't keep up with these
Or just put it in Chat GPT and tell it to summarize.
that'd be good too. Yeah,
But-
I understand.
but-
Most of the time they're getting things off their chest, and so to that viewer, I understand you're getting things off your chest. But you also have to understand we're a company that cares, and so we read that whole thing, and then we escalate it. It's like I have like 4 people had to read that whole thing, and it's like unfair to us. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and I think it puts you on defense when you're not in that position. But I think we have to understand it's like alcohol is like, it'd be great. So we could have a glass of wine here and there, but that doesn't mean that there isn't issues with alcoholism and alcoholics. So we're discussing the downsides of what can be a bad influence. It doesn't mean that it's the thing itself is the bad thing. I think that's where
it's always gone too
something
far.
got lost there, I think.
No, but we have, and we got lost in this week's show. So last week we were talking about ultimately sex, because sex always starts everything up. Like, see, everyone's all excited, they're watching, and our ratings went way up. Now we're going to talk about relationships, and where relationships go or don't go, and how they go. Because relationships have gone through quite an orchestra of change, and I argue it's all due to Pluto change that your relationships did this. But before we do that, I have to say, I myself, friend, have actually made a product that love, being the bridge between you and everything. You can actually learn how you are just from astrology. I mean, the planets themselves say so much about how you are in relationships and how you are in dysfunctional relationships. And I have a little product that is now free at SeriousJoy.com called the Love and Lust Report. Have you ever heard yours from me, actually, Scott?
Have I what?
Have you ever heard your Love and Lust Report at Serious Joy?
I haven't heard mine. No.
No, I know
Why
you
don't
should.
why don't I have it? I need to get it.
It's there, and that's what we're saying. We're exploiting this moment to talk about the Love and Lust Report on SeriousJoy.com. This is actually our pilot technology, where we can create a customized reading with 100 to 500 audio files. Okay, so this has been my dream, is to create a full-on reading from me. But the Love and Lust Report ultimately is 20 minutes where I talk to you about how you are with love and lust. We just had a new person, because we have this new wave of people that have come to work with us in this next round, and they're all blown away by it. It's very good. I channeled it in 2010. So it all just kind of channeled, and it's a hard thing to do, because you have to make it look like it was all shot the same day, and it has to all sound the same, but it puts together these different audio clips that makes a full-on reading for you about how you are in love and lust.
Wow.
And I actually think I was making it for now, because now is when people are going into it. It's something that's free. We're eventually going to sell them one off, but you can get it for free when you sign up for Serious Joy. It's in our reports under astrology. Just click Love and Lust Report. You'll hear me walk you through, and it's one of those things that if you're in a relationship, the biggest thing that people tell me is women is they're like, yeah, I sat my husband down. I made him listen to that shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, see, this is what I've been trying to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, see, it's like I found a way like sort of orchestrate. And I talk about the biggest thing about the hook of this thing is that I open the reading with the wrong person you always end up dating.
Right.
That wrong person, because people tend to fall into their lessons before they fall into love. So,
well, I'm gonna get mine done then. Do I
was
have to
gonna
pay?
say, can we bring it up again to sell it next week, and you tell me what you thought? I'd be curious.
Yeah, I need a VIP.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, VIP. Well, it's actually called SOB, Secrets of Birthdays. So internally, we're like, it's the SOBs. I know.
That's perfect.
The sons of bitches. So this week we're talking about relationships. So seriousjoy.com, by the way, for that. Free on $3.99. It's free in the show.
Wonderful.
You know, you can go deeper with your personal astrology and things like that, but let's talk about the evolution of relationships themselves. You know, Pluto, I think that Pluto, this is my astrological pitch. Pluto is generation because it's the slowest moving planet. Okay. So Pluto being assigned from 10 to 15 years. All right. So, it's going to be, in this one, I think 18, to be honest, like almost 19 for Pluto in Aquarius. And so what you have there is a whole generation. Pluto is sex. It is the sign of sex. It is Scorpio. It's when you open up or don't open up. It's, who you want to have sex with and what the laws of sex are around, so mating. And God does use sex as a lure to your lesson, always. So the one you were like crazy, I don't want to say it, but I will. The ones you're just dripping for is usually the lesson.
Yes.
Right? That's
Karmic.
the lesson. Yeah. Because real love takes foreplay. Just kidding. But real love does take foreplay. It takes having like laying down the tracks. Pluto, therefore, the sign of sex, tells us where we are learning. So like the Pluto Virgo generation, which was like the those born in the late 60s. Okay, so you had the summer of free love. Pluto was in Leo. Okay, Pluto's in Leo. You had the baby boom generation. They go out and have sex with everybody. No rules around love at all. Then Pluto in Virgo. I want to heal this shit. I'm tired of feeling bad. I'm tired of being dominated, says the women. Men, I'm tired of having only one woman. Or having to lie about it. So Pluto in Virgo generation were sort of like the, in some ways, the tidy. The people who are sort of like on the outside looked kind of. I put off this I'm conservative image, but on the inside, I'm a dirty whore. Let me out of the cage. That's Pluto Virgo. Pluto Libra was a relationship in the 70s where it's just like I have the right to do what I want to do. I have the right to date who I want to date. So in the 70s and Pluto in the early 80s, Pluto and Libra is like I'm going to be who I want to be with. I don't have to be married to this prick or married to this person or married to that person. The Pluto Libra generation starts to realize I can have sex with anyone I want. I can do anything I want. I own me. This is my body, right? Pluto and Scorpio is, okay, fuck it. We're getting divorced, right? So Pluto and Scorpio is like, we're going to do anything kinky, anything wild that we want to do. Anything's on the table, including gay. So gay comes out in the 80s. And that's the right. We're like, nope, that's it. I'm gay. We're here. It was out before, but it wasn't out until really HIV. That's really ironically. And Pluto's also death. So upon death comes this idea of a lot of people who were like little towns did not realize preacher was sleeping with altar boy. They really didn't. It was just they were in their cloud. Pluto and Sag, therefore in the late 90s, was more like the philosophy of sex. And so this is when you had all these words come out in the late 90s. Like we're going to talk about those words today, but it's like that's when we started being philosophical about what we have the right to be. I'm a this but not that. Thriples came out with Pluto and Sagittarius. Terms like that, terms like thriples, polyamorism, all that came out. Right. And then we have now Pluto and Capricorn, which is like our control over sex. And it's only been, Pluto Capricorn just got done. So literally those kids are like 15 or 16. They're about to go through puberty. All right. And their whole thing is taking control back, which is like, I'll define what fucking pronoun I am. I'll define if I, so they're like, at this point, you are not going to control me and who I am as a gender, who I have sex with, how many people. No. So it's like absolute, we take control back. So this has been the evolution of sex and relationships. Now that brings us to where we are now. What's going to be Pluto and Aquarius? Before I give my theory, what is your theory of Pluto and Aquarius?
Well, I think that people have been recognizing that they were playing roles for the sake of playing the role, right?
That's
because
true.
of some sort of ego satisfaction. So those well, I have to have monogamy because I was built to have a serious relationship and build a family. And then they're starting to realize I'm a polygamist. I want to be, with multiple
Right.
people, right? And they start really defining their true roles. Or those who've been like going around, whoring around, realizing I want a partner. I really want a true partner. I actually want a life partner I can build. So I really find people finding their correct true role and getting out of the roles they were like maybe pushing for because of, like we said in the last episode, people have desires based on karmic unresolved or unresolved trauma. So their desires are spawning to pacify trauma. I feel a lot of us have gone through a lot of that work and associating what they truly want now. And so with Pluto and Aquarius, I think they're going to find their new role and what their new role is. And so I'm surprised my new role is to be monogamous in a relationship. I mean, I always knew
I am
that, but
too.
I'm like free spirit energy. So it should be very exciting, but also very healing, but also relieving. For a lot of people. And especially those who've had open relationships, they start realizing they just were not happy and they're really defining what happiness is, that they do want monogamy and so forth. So, and this is not to say monogamy is right or wrong or being a polygamist is right or wrong. It's all suited to your karmic journey. So whatever you just choose to do, it's your journey. But that's the point of Pluto and Aquarius. There's no reservation anymore about who we are, what we decide to do, and how we just, choose to live our lives. I think we're going to be embracing of that now. And the different dynamics of our relationships, are going to be a huge reflection of that, and how we interact with other people too, or accept or embrace other people.
I think that, at the very core, Pluto and Aquarius allows us to nano in, because Pluto allows you to like separate all of it, to the very like little piece of it. And that piece of it is, what is the vibe I'm attracted to? So I think people are on the search for the vibe, right? Whereas before we're search for the breasts, we're search for the income, we're search for all these other things besides like the actual vibe. So I think we're getting down to the actual vibe, right?
Yes.
But in that context, Aquarius is also where you can detach, right? And what's crazy is like this, in sex, people are like choking themselves out, that whole thing. Like there's people who will cut themselves off from oxygen.
Right.
Robin Williams allegedly died this way through masturbation. Apparently, it was an accident. I mean, it was an accident. Whoops, you didn't mean to do that.
Right. But yeah.
Because he was getting an extra high off of cutting off. So like when you cut off, you get like this weird high in the other areas, and that's true with. So I think a lot of like group sex, and I think a lot of these extreme sex is actually they've cut off from the heart. The body high goes higher. And they're going off of adrenaline rushes, and they're going off of other kind of rushes that are not Leo, Pluto opposite of, Pluto Aqua opposite of Leo, not Leo rushes. The other part art, the other part then love. And I think that this getting high, so to speak, off of detached love sex is going to come out in the form of robots. Okay, I think you're gonna have a problem with man fucking the robot at home. Like the wife's gonna be like, "You've been screwing Rosie again." It's like we're gonna have total robot sex.
Right. Well, and before you get into the two, because I just want to dovetail, because the absence of love creates these addictions, right? And so when you have that absence of love, then you get so fixated, you need more because it's superficial, it's mechanical. Right. So all right, I got the dopamine rush because I watched porn. Now I need it again. I need it again. And it's very short-lived. Right, exactly. And that's why it turns into an addiction, because the absence of love. And so I think a lot of people, and there might be a dichotomy of people where they start going down that path of robotic and AI, of love and AI and stuff like that. And then others are saying, no, like I've been in the absence of love for so long, I'm bored, I'm tired of this, and giving up the porn. And, because a lot of people, men especially, watch porn. It's just like a normal thing for them because they're not going out and being a whore. They're just, so they're starting to recognize, I've seen a lot of men that I've worked with just wanting to put it away. And like they're done with it, wiping their hands with it, in a sense, and saying like they don't have to have that reliance. They don't want to have that fixation on it because they've relied on that as a laziness. And we talked about this last time about like our culture being very lazy and, going more for that instant gratification. And we did talk about foreplay, and I'm glad you kind of mentioned that figuratively about love. Yes, love takes a nurturing phase to it. It's not all like all in. So, but I think a lot of us collectively have experienced I think that's why the narcissistic and twin flame ideologies have become so big, even though it's annoying and a lot of it's kind of inaccurate. I think it's great because it's showing where we're standing as a humanity, that people are recognizing, hey, wait a minute, I'm too empathetic. And we'll get into that in a minute too. Or I'm too giving, or I'm not loving myself enough. So that's been a huge breakthrough and awakening for a lot of people lately, to where I think, not what I think, I see and I feel and I know people are now grabbing onto relationships that are truly meaningful for them. And so, and
that's
those
the other
are
side of it. Aquarius is multidimensional. So you have this lower frequency, lower as in higher consciousness is not there. nor is oxygen. You're choking yourself out. Like
Right.
oxygen and higher consciousness are both missing. And I think you're right, by the way. It's short lived, so it becomes addictive. And I think there's going to be people with, Facebook goggles on who are just like in virtual bars and playing with virtual people who are, wherever they are, quite not who they pretend to be, right?
But those are where the narcissists are going to go to. To me, that's where all the narcissists will go into the controlling aspect, and the people who aren't love will be in the real relationships.
The stalker.
Yeah, we'll put those
only
narcissists
the person who is
prison.
being artificially stimulated. I'm sure. I mean, you'll have like devices that go on your genitals. That it's all gonna be virtual to where it feels like you're being groped by the right person, right?
Aroma generators, right? The mist and must generators.
But then you have the other dimension of this is you have not had an orgasm, honey, until you have felt kundalini. Kundalini, which is the higher vibration of love.
Yes.
There's a higher vibration of love than we live in now. So according to God consciousness, this is the shitty love that we get now. The shitty, barbaric, black and white love is very, very shitty. On the grades of love, this is as low as it gets. All right? And there's higher consciousness of love to where you can have a joygasm where the energy comes from the base of your spine and blows out through your crown. So the universe is watching people have orgasms. There's a whole nother rainbow kind of love, apparently. I hear about it, but it comes from actually compatibility. It comes from the fact that you bring your frequencies together. It comes from the fact that you are aware of frequency to begin with, and you're aware of your body. It takes a higher consciousness to even have this sort of joygasm.
But so but those joygasms really, what really creates joygasms in that sense to me is just being free. If you think about your sexual interactions, when you just feel free with somebody and you feel like you could be yourself, that's orgasmic, right? When you're not overthinking, especially those who get that orgasmic nature when they're skydiving. They're free. They get this rush, this impulse. And I think that's truly what love is that freedom. It's not judgmental. It's not critiquing. It's not we're embarrassed or insecure. And so, a lot of people say, oh, I'm in love with them because, they make me feel free. I'm like, they don't make you feel free. I said, you're allowing the circumstance to be free because you're comfortable and you understand it's what you need. It's not them, So,
I think this is spiritual, though. I think you don't feel like there's a spiritual. I agree with what you're saying.
That's what I'm talking about. But that's what I'm talking about.
Freedom is like step one. Like if you don't have freedom, you ain't never going to get anything cosmic.
But I'm talking but true freedom though. Like how many people can really be free of insecurities, free of overthinking, free of trauma resolve or trauma impulses? How many people? I mean, that's why we're here is to resolve that shit.
Right.
And so when you bring that into love and you're loving relationships and you're not schlepping that baggage along or schlepping that deprivation along, you feel free. That's where the love really can exist. Right, because they have space for love. It's hard for love to exist with all those other parameters.
I think you're saying so. Freedom, I think you would say, is the 80s. Okay, so like you're actually laying out the next thing.
I'm talking about spiritual freedom. I'm not talking about liberation.
I think all together, the soul has to be free all together from man's laws, from God's alleged laws, from anyone's laws, even from your own self-judgment laws. You have to be free. I agree.
And how many people are like spiritually free that way? That's why we're in business. That's why the spiritual communities are rising because people are starting to out that they might be liberated, but they're not free still. And so that's just freedom. I'm talking about it's the spiritual freedom of the karmic bondage, the traumatic bondage, and all the expectations that we're talking about. Freedom for all that. That's where where love can exist.
I agree. I completely agree. Onto the relationship part. Decoupling and parenting and marriage in the 80s, that was the first spark of freedom. Okay, so divorce is the first thing, and that's how relationships have changed in my life. In my life, I watched 1 out of 2 baby boomers get divorced with Pluto and Libra, where I was being given the empowerment of doing relationships the way I want to do them. Then we went into same-sex marriage with Pluto and Scorpio, where it's like, no, you have the freedom actually to marry your own gender, or you have the freedom not to be with your own gender. Like, that's cool. You do whatever you want. Then we had also at the same time the demisexual, which I haven't even heard this until this show when you guys are prepping me. Demisexual. This is where Demi Moore comes from. It's like, which is only people you have an emotional connection with. So like, typical Scorpio, reality, 2 extremes. 1, I can sleep with anyone. 2, I'm only sleeping with the one that I have emotional connection to. So there's actually a division there of that in relationships. Now where we're at is polyamory. And according to a study from the frontier of psychology, 1 out of every 9 people have engaged in polyamory at some time. Now, y'all, the numbers need to go up. It's going to be poly. You need more like 7 out of 9. This is going to work. But polyamory seems to be like the latest thing. even to the point of my son's generation. Like I hear it all the time from my son and his friends, although ironically they're all living in single relationships. You know, I don't see them. I'm like, son, this is not what a whore is. You've been home every night with your wife. You know, like you all need to be all, throwing things. But polyamory is that's the Pluto Sag generation. They have the right to take on whatever type of relationship they want.
Sure.
And polyamory apparently is, if I'm not complete, but you're gonna basically, you can have many at once, right? Now here's the thing. I think we are polyamorous by nature of spirit. Because I have met all my past life wives and I still love them. Would I live with them again? Hell no. You know what I mean? Like I learned that in that lifetime. But the love is really there. And when I have a new relationship, the first thing is like, hey, there's these past life wives that sometimes call and like I love them. I'm gonna talk to them. Like that's one of the things I have to have because I'm not gonna like fuck that up again. And they don't want to be with me. They're calling me for advice at this point because they know me. And they're also want to give me advice. Half the time an ex past life wife is like, Chris, you know how you are. You know what I mean? Like type of thing. And they'll be the ones that bring that advice. So I kind of saw polyamory, that concept sort of bubbling up, already.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's kind of very much indicative of Pluto and Aquarius, right? And not to say that polyamorous relationship is what's going to set the tone. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is this a reflection of human consciousness. However way it's going to bring people together and, bring people more collectively focused. If it has to happen through that way, which is through sexual relationships, so be it, right? But I just think that's just a manifestation of Pluto and Aqua, people coming together. And so if people are able to come together in the most vulnerable states when it comes to sexuality and love, then that's great. It's a great reflection of human consciousness and how we are coming together in that sense. But I think we have to stop judging the expressions, whether it's monogamy, polygamy. You do what's good for you, but understand everything is part of creation. Remember that one time some guy gay bashed me on one of the episodes, saying like bashed me because I was gay and saying that like being gay stops creation. And I'm like, being gay is creation. All these anomalies in creation spawns from the evolution of human culture. Okay, honey bunny. So
I'm sorry, if it was creative, a gay man probably did it, or a gay woman. Like, gay is actually so free creatively that a lot of the most creative arts come from people who are gay.
Right. So, but we have to, and that's what I'm saying. Like, we're getting to the point of judging the roles, the expressions, understanding like it all exists. That's part of creation. It's part of evolution. And so, I think it's more about how do we stand in it, but also how we can support others through what they're expressing too. That's the point. We've been so look at the religious karma we talked about the last episode, right? Keep referencing the last episode. All that judgmental. It's got to be a certain way, and it has to be certain roles, and we're breaking that down. I mean, we're busting that through.
I think I've been calling it pluralism. Like I believe. Here's the truth, y'all. We've been in polyamorous, anyways. Like, because I talk to you women, you tell me the truth when you come on these readings. Okay, that you've been masturbating about this guy. And that you've been thinking about that guy, and you're married, and you're tired of him looking at other women. So you're like complaining about it. It's like, what? You just told me you were masturbating. We all, when we were having sexual fantasies about other people, polyamorous right there, like you are energetically connecting to them. By the way, if you have a sexual fantasy about a person, they are receiving that energy psychically, telepathically. They are receiving it. There's no way, that you cannot not, right? And they're either getting it through a dream or whatever. It's happening. There's a union going on a higher frequency there, whether you pretend to or not. So just going to call everyone out on that one. And I've had, because I've had psychic girlfriends, they literally be like, "What the fuck were you masturbating?" Like I'll get yelled at about fantasies. It's crazy. But the point is like, I'm like, yeah, it's safe. No, I picked up that stuff, But the point is, we already are, and I think we have to give ourselves permission for that because. This goes on to a topic we're going to say about, if you're not with someone who's spiritual enough. The truth is that we're working on our shit with 100 people, 100 that we're working on our shit with. Each one has a little nuance that you're working out stuff with. Some go to romance, some need sex, some don't need sex, some need to know they could have it but won't take it. There's all sorts of different ways. And I think that, it's wherever you are with all those relationships, whatever step number that relationship is in. Because I think relationships go through steps from 0 to 11 also. And so that step, that relationship may be on step 25, which is way after it was romantic, way after it was sexual. So I think we have to just acknowledge, I agree with you, Scott, we have to not judge. And I think we have to not judge ourselves. It's okay. You're in this mind game with 1,000 people. Now there's some extremes we want to bring up, like, sexual abuse in relationships. Like it looks like we're working the abuse out, right? We certainly are, as a culture, talking about what's right and wrong and who's right, what people's rights are. We have kind of a scale. I was talking about, we have a Kinsey scale. was the old scale. We almost have now, a new scale based on from like boring to narcissist. Like it starts with like the people pleaser, like someone who's always nice, all the way up to the narcissist, right? Like people pleaser, codependent, narcissist. That's the scale. And I would say that most of America or the United States, I can speak for the world, was on the codependent scale when I was, came into play. Almost all of us needed somebody. And now we've gotten out of that need part. And to the extreme, we've gone to the narcissist, right? And we just explored those extremes. I mean, what's your thought on narcissists?
Well, again, because I think that, like I was saying before, like as an aqua, I always tend to like turn my nose up at trends, right? The trends. But then I realized trends is just a manifestation of where the collective is at. So it's a good key about what we're supposed to learn. So although the whole buzzword of the decade was narcissist, I'm like, but this is a good sign that we're understanding the empathic. That also means if there's a rise of narcissists, there's a rise of empaths too. That means people are discovering their empathic awareness. They're discovering their intuitive awareness. They're understanding their value. Now it's time to pull that back. So I think, now is the time we're starting to recognize, I need to start having more self-respect and not giving and enabling other people, which creates the narcissist. So although it's been the buzzword of the decade, I feel like it's been a great resurrection in human consciousness. So, narcissist is a term for people who, I think it's gotten so much sensationalism that people think that everybody's a narcissist just because they're not in agreement with them. And I think that it's time for us to understand, when we're talking about a narcissist because they ghosted you or they're not following through with you just because they're not interested, maybe we start becoming more the narcissist because, they don't want to get, respond to me. They're not texting me. They don't want to date me. And it's like, we got to be careful of not becoming the thing we say that we detest just because no one is giving us the attention that we need. And I've been seeing a lot of that where the empath goes in the imbalanced structure. They give so much and they become so needy. They start needing too much.
Yes.
And they start becoming kind of the narcissist that they're trying to avoid. That's a vicious cycle. So as an empath, we have to make sure that we're not my best friend said to me, he's like, Scott, don't be all outbox, meaning like, don't be all spamming emails. Don't be all like giving to everybody else. You got to start receiving some inbox too and love in return. And so I think that when we can focus on this and we put our empathic natures in balance, we don't enable a narcissist energy anymore, but we actually, like I said before, it's just a symbol of empathic and intuitive nature is on the rise actually, and people are becoming more aware. So to me, it's a wonderful thing. I think the rise of the narcissist has been a wonderful thing for realization, but we have to also understand too, there's a lot of narcissists that are just narcissists only because they've gone through massive trauma as well. So I don't think it's fair just to shut them down and shun them, or just because people are like who are very confident. I would say we have to have ego to do the work that you and I do, to be on TV or to be on camera and put ourselves out there. There needs to be a little bit of an ego. So when people say kill the ego and they're all about killing the ego, we need to understand what the ego is for. Ego is for survival. If you rely on your ego to get you through spiritual times, it's not going to happen. But let the ego nurture your ego so it does its role, and then you can be more spiritually focused, and you can see the differences between people. Not so much everyone's a narcissist. You can be more intuitive. And so I think it's people just use it as a cheap shot. I'm sure you had a lot in your sessions too, right? Saying I'm dating a narcissist, and
it's always like, and my last one was a narcissist. And it's like, yes. But also, here's the thing. I mean, we can't go deep on this now, but 9 out of 10 women who are dating a narcissist were the narcissist in the past life. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Okay, so it's your turn to see what you were like. And in most of relationships, you have flipped genders. So you were the man, there's a gender flipping. So when it comes to like a true twin flame or a true soulmate where you powerfully change each other, you flip genders and you flip roles each lifetime. So So you were the narcissist. You were the man. You were the one sleeping with your slaves as forefathers. You know what I mean? Like it was you. That was the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. Last time Pluto was in Aquarius, it was with the American, Revolution. Benjamin Franklin was a hoe. Okay, that guy was not allowed in France anymore. Thomas Jefferson was sleeping with his slaves who were under 15. Okay, ironically, George Washington was very loyal. He was a Pisces, and he only loved Martha. So who would have thought that? A Pisces single. So that was a revolution back then. That was an evolution back then, and it always happens. It transforms. But we want to now talk about relationships that are where are they going to go in the future? That's the question. Where are they going from now? How's it going to be? But first, a word from our local sponsor, Scott Cruz.
And global.
Scott Cruz is popularly known for his life-changing one-on-one readings to also guide in your soul ascension journey. With life readings, get insight into your relationships, career, health, trauma healings, past life regressions, and more. Want to connect with a loved one who's transitioned? Scott's mediumship session can be the gateway to you and your loved ones in spirit, bridging the gap between the physical and the spiritual realm. If you want to enhance your own psychic ability, Scott's Intuition Builder session can help expand your psychic and mediumship abilities. So sign on to scottcruzpm.com to book your own personal session today.
And that is it Come Alive that you're singing that?
Yeah, it's Come Alive. It's my song, Come Alive. Yeah.
Just like I always see like you dressed in like something scampy with like horns, like singing "Come Alive" as you just walked out like a prince. I don't know. I see this weird religious thing when I hear this. Yeah, I know. And then this other thing comes in. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that was actually, those vocals, like it was 20 of my vocals that I sang over and over just to get that effect. Yeah.
Certainly what I hear when I hear Joygasm, I think of that song, "Come Alive." So the host muted me. So what will happen with relationships in the new era, especially with so many people having spiritual awakenings? Well, the good news for those who are on a spiritual path, a survey conducted by the Kinsey Institute, the same bastards that said we're all bisexual, found out that individuals who engage in regular spiritual practices tend to have slightly more fulfilling sex lives than those who don't. It also shows that more spiritual, conservative, or religious individualistic people often report lower rates of sexual satisfaction. So, there's a lot of tools we have in our tool belt for light workers. We have astrology that can help you with long-lasting love. And when you find out that you've been dating all of your problems, you'll realize that. We have great love stories coming up and awakening, I think, right now. I see tremendous love stories that were interrupted by the destruction of Atlantis. So I see, my third eye sees the love of my life in Atlantis coming back, or the love of my life in Mu coming back once we were restored to the high vibrational love. We have to continue the story. If we were at high vibration, we crashed, you fucked up, you got in the middle of my marriage, and now it's going to come back. So I think we have a lot of past life returns coming up. And the other question, this is the one, that big one we should wrap up with, is what happens? I get this all the time. Women are married to men who are not spiritually awake. That's the common. They're not spiritually awake. And they're very confused.
Yeah, I think that we have to like kind of put an emphasis on what spiritual awake means, right? Because it doesn't mean that you have to like always have someone who has the same perspective as you. I think the more spiritual awake you become, you probably would be with someone who maybe doesn't see things the same thing as you and understand the diversity. So
this is usually the case of, not to interrupt, I just want to add, like, this is usually the case of a man who, and I hear the story, I've seen it, who I've seen him, she drags him to come meet me. And she's like, "Oh my God, I love you. I'll meet you. I just can't wait. This is my husband." He's like, huh. Like his attitude is like totally kind of like, "Yeah, I'm here for her." It's like being drugged. It's like for a woman being drugged to a baseball game.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, like, is I think people put so much emphasis of like they've had an awakening, and that lasts when they have this. It's like when someone gets saved, they like preach Jesus, and all of a sudden that fades out, and then they start living normal, dense reality. So I find a lot of people in relationships, and it's like it's because of your supportive husband that's been there for you.
Right.
That's you had your spiritual awakening. So because he doesn't like dive into spiritual modalities, somehow now you think you got to move on. It's like it's because of him. So spiritual awakening is a personal process. It's not about you diving into quantum physics or the different level of mysticism. Spiritual awakening means that you're whole. Spiritual awakening means that you understand where you've come from in previous incarnations. You understand where you're going. You understand your intuition. That's a spiritual awakening. And then a spiritual awakening also means that you are embracing your humanity. You're embracing the human, experience. So I think that the more you become spiritually awakened, you'll realize that everything is fitting, and probably more so, you become more appreciative, and you will understand, my partner has been supportive of me and loving of me and been very open to me to do as I please, express as I please, that he doesn't have to understand all the spiritual and mystical terminology, because he could be spiritually evolved and just not conscious of that. There's many people who are spiritually evolved and have wisdom. They're just not so conscious of spiritual lingo and terminology, because we're all spirit. We're all spirit anyway. But but let me speak to the contrary. There are cases to where one has a spiritual awakening. They realize and recognize their worth. They realize and recognize the things that have not been serving of them, and they might wake up in a spiritual awakening and say, this is the wrong partner. So your spiritual awakening should be a clue about that you're making the wrong decisions or you're with the wrong people. Then you will exit those relationships. But the very fact because you had a spiritual awakening and someone else isn't using the same lingo is not the reason to walk away from a relationship.
You're right. Good distinction. Though in that case, they're using spirituality as the excuse for what they don't want to look at. So I've seen that. I've
Right.
also seen, here's the thing, y'all girls, spirituality is from the heart up. There's no sex. There's no sex in a spiritual relationship. There's no sex. Okay. Sex is in the barbaric. Okay. So you want great sex, you need someone barbaric. You know what I mean? Like that's the intensity. In fact, if you have someone spiritually high and someone not spiritually high, the sex is better because the high to low that you go through that moment is more intense. So I think the mistake is thinking that the romance and what Hollywood has talked us into should be between two light workers. No, that's actually quite boring. Two light workers don't even need to even look at the genitals. Two light workers can go there just vibrationally, right? So I think we're confused in thinking that there's like deep barbaric root chakra love in spiritual relationships. There's not. You know, that's the whole point of becoming barbaric. We were tired of the boring in heaven. Like, I want some barbaric, you know? So there's that. There's also, I often find that a lot of women who are married to non-spiritual men are here to do great things, and to be great spiritual leaders and to take back the divine feminine. And you're going to need an anchor, girl. You're going to need an anchor. These men have come to anchor you in most cases. They've come to be your rock. And yes, they don't budge, but I'm seeing the men budging now. Telling you, I've seen the last 4 years, these men that were not listening, not being a part of it, are like, she might have something to this. And the reason why they married was because he's not going to trust anyone but you to go there. You're the one that will be able to translate it. You're the one that'll be able to talk to him. He will listen to you over time. You want to see if you're going to go too far with it. It was kind of hokey at first, but like always, my wife's got a point. You know what I mean? Like they are coming to that. So I think a lot of times the woman needed the anchor. They needed the rock because they were going to go do great things. They needed the man that was going to look out for the barbaric when she's on stage. They needed the man that was going to look out for the low vibration when she's blossoming as a leader. And, you know, he's not going to understand that. And you're not going to understand why he likes, you know, fucking race cars.
Right.
I think it's just part of the way it is.
I think just men are becoming more, because I said, you know, we're going to have a rise of a divine feminine moving forward as we rise. And that means, when I say divine feminine, I'm talking about we all possess divine mass and divine feminine. And so putting that in balance. So a lot of men are tapping into, and divine feminine is that nurturing ability, the creative ability, the sensitive ability, the psychic ability, right? And so I see a lot more straight men, as being a gay male, a lot of straight men being more into that.
Me too.
And I've been having a lot of straight male clients. I'm just like, you know, all right, here's a skeptic that some wife sent him to me. And he's like, no, like a lot of these men are really developing their psychic awareness, their emotional awareness. So I've been seeing a great, evolution with that. So I think that's wonderful. But I want to say too, but when we talk about like the spiritual awakening thing, you know, yes, we came here for density. We came here for that carnal nature. We came here for that. So when you're trying to disconnect from all that, that is not an awakening. And if you feel like you have to disconnect and run from everything when it doesn't coincide with, you know, aligning yourself with things that are true for you, just because you're like, ugh, I don't agree with anything. I don't relate to anybody. Ugh. And you start looking down on things. That's not a spiritual awakening. You still have a long way to go. So
That's a good point. If you are judging anyone, you're not awake. Sorry.
Or anything. Anyone or anything.
If you're judging, you're not awake. You're not awake. Stop calling yourself awake and them not awake. If you're comparing who's awake and not awake, you're not awake. Like that's a game of being asleep, you know. So we got to call a spade for a spade. I agree with you. Yeah. I do think that we're moving towards a polyamory kind of perspective in the sense that I am incredibly close to so many women as sensei. I am so close that it's a little confusing at times for some women because why doesn't it take that final leap? You can be so close to someone as if they are your partner in so many ways and never go there at all. And that's what I think partly learning is that like to allow ourselves to be really close to people and not have to go to bed, you know, and not have to have those other things. If anything, I had a lot of problems because when I went down the lightworker path and whatever, I didn't like that person telling me about light work. Like that's my territory. Like I don't really want my partner to know. I prefer that they know nothing and that I'm God. Like that way I get to be, you know, the king of what I get to be and they get to be, you know, what they get to be. Like and I like that part. And I like being the one that knows more. And I like being the teacher and I like that role. I like it. So I really enjoy it.
That's Yeshua's energy. You know, it's just like you understand what people's walks of life are. We're all coming from these different positionings of karma, from different perspectives, different experiences. It's all true. Yeah. And so I think that when we adapt to just finding at least a curiosity about like, where'd you come from? What do you think? What are you feeling? Why do you feel this way? It's like, I'm always curious. That's why I love reading people. And I've been doing it for so long because I've learned so much about people and
Yeah.
what they see, because what we think is usually common isn't so common, you know. So I've just learned so much from different perspectives, you know, by reading a lot of different people. So when you find that to be a beautiful thing, not a thing to detest, to me that's awakening.
I agree, and
beautiful.
we'll do a show on awakening coming up. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think I personally have no judgment over anything. Like I could fall in love with any walk of life, someone who's in the gutter, someone who's, you know, who is escorting, like anything. Like to me, it doesn't matter. Like I fall in love with the soul, and I don't judge that person. I'm like, huh, interesting. This is how. I find it fascinating the way people construct a complex life in order to learn their lessons, and I don't judge anyone shape. You know, I'm like, yeah, I think it's fascinating personally. The differences.
100%.
And I actually, I've just read the comments so many times that I like the unique weird shit. Like, cause it's like, wow, fascinating. Like if someone's like, so you're in love with a horse. Wow. You know, like I'm really interested in that stuff because, it's where we're taking stuff, you know, it's like these weird paths. Yeah, totally. Mr. Ed. Oh my God. No, but that's the point. And a lot of women actually are in love with their horses. I'll tell you that. Whole other story. It's everything. Sorry about, you know, that potential. So people have crossed line with animals too, which is weird, but also, I don't know. Is it, you know, I don't know. I'm not surprised. Energetically, we are making love to everyone when we go to heaven. We become one.
Well, to me, the more perverse something is, the more you've had a disdain for in your previous incarnation. So probably they were animal killers, you know, and didn't respect
That's
animals.
true. That's true.
So overly perverse where it's like, oh yeah, you want to like dismiss animal here? You're going to be fascinated and sexually attracted to it and be shamed by people. So, you know, I definitely find the deeper the perversion, the deeper the disdain you had previously, or the deeper of disrespect you had previously in a previous incarnation.
That's usually true. And actually you just set up for our close perfectly, brother, subconsciously under my manipulative control. No, I'm kidding. Next week, we're actually going to talk about past lives. We're going to talk about past lives. We're talking about past loves. And we have a special guest on the show who's a past life regressionist therapist, like a person who puts people under and then finds out about their past lives. Heron DeWitt, who is trained directly by the Dolores Cannon. And he's from that Dolores Cannon Institute. He's going to talk about how he gets into past lives just in time for the Pisces season when we'll be opening the lid of past lives. Also, I want to run this at the end of the show, if we can, Mr. Director, which is we have the 40 days of past lives and karma coming up on SeriousJoy.com. It's actually on SeriousJoy.cloud. We no longer give it away with our service. We now have a price for it. It is a 40-day course that will bring you to understand your past lives. If you can't think of the actual name that you were in that past life, you will understand so much of who you were in that past life through simple journaling exercises and guidance from our practitioners. You will see for yourself. Now, some people are afraid to look at their past lives. Some people are afraid to go to someone like Jerome DeWitt. And so this is a great first step because you'll see in the power of your chart and your own journaling and your own memories and your own childhood, you will see these patterns very clearly. And we walk you through the patterns. And this is once a year. We only do this right when the sun starts at Pisces. So as you journey down the rabbit hole of subconscious, we are taking you deeper and deeper and deeper with past life prompts. So if you want to know more, it's in the cloud at SeriousJoy.cloud. SeriousJoy.cloud. If you want some help, we also have tutors, and you can also be tutored in the same time with some packages there. Also at SeriousJoy.cloud. Even for my own subscribers to Serious Joy, may want a tutor because sometimes that shift is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, and also next week we'll be able to like explain all three different processes of how we do past life regressions, how you do it with astrology, how I do it as a medium, and how he does it with his therapeutic hypnosis. So we have three great different variables of how people can access their past lives.
Yes, past lives are accessible in many ways. And I will say, just for those who are doubting, I did not have my first convincing past life flash until age 42.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did not till age 42. I had too much other shit. If you have trauma, you can't see your past lives. You only see the traumatic ones, if anything.
Well, I had mine. I had trauma. And I had mine in my mid-20s.
But you're a professional psychic medium.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You can't scale the world to you. You were born. You're like very talented there. Most people just can't. And I'm a very psychic kid. I was reading people when I was a kid, but I found out that your past life memories. You're not supposed to go into past life because you're supposed to live past life by example and then see why. You know.
Yes.
You were that way. You know, that's the way God seemed to do it. So don't beat yourself up. You can start to get to know it conceptually right now in your 30s at 40 days of past lives and karma.
and there's a time for it too, because not every time is going to be, you're going to receive it. Right. And there's a time to where I would say past life regressions happen where there's some sort of like a trauma recognition or realization. Yes. It fits in perfectly to make that breakthrough. So yeah, don't feel bad if you haven't had one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, actually, it happens when it's meant to happen. And a lot of times people are learning first about how they express their past lives and their behavior before they get into the why. You got to know what before why. Okay.
Yep.
So y'all enjoy your Valentine's Day and remember to love yourself and love yourself some more. You are the most important relationship you have, and everyone else is special in your life after you. You come first. Thank you for being you and leading out loud. We'll see you next week. Love you.
We love you.
Oh my God. So this horse I'm dating,
This horse.
hung like a
You know,
bear, but a horse. I'm kidding.
I've been getting a lot of like people who work with horses and a lot of horse, people, who have horses. I've been getting a lot of that lately. So
Me too.
I'll probably be around horses, soon.
Well, for women, it's that ride in the saddle that I think really is like
Well,
what
that's
starts the relationship.
Yeah, that's a different kind of horse.
No. I'm telling you, women and horses, like they're crazy about their horse.
Really? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. They're like crazy.
Cowboys too.